"I don't need your attention anymore," he claimed before, until I stopped giving it completely and... The champagne flutes were chiming like tiny, frantic bells, each ring a punctuation mark on Nia's dazzling success. She stood under the spotlight, both literally and figuratively, at the annual corporate gala, a shimmering, tailored masterpiece of a woman, radiating the kind of effortless grace that makes you believe in magazine covers. Tonight wasn't just another event. It was the grand celebration of her latest promotion to regional director. It was, for Nia, the air she breathed, public validation. "I am Benny. I am her husband." To the world, I am the steady, quietly supportive presence in the background, a perfectly acceptable frame for her vibrant portrait. If Nia was the blazing sun, I was content, or so I told myself, to be the stable moon, reflecting her light. I work in design, something creative, quiet, and largely disconnected from the high-stakes, glittering world she commanded. We were a study in contrasts. She, the lightning strike, I, the steady earth. Nia. Her name, a simple syllable, always felt like it should be preceded by a fanfare. She was ambitious, yes, but her ambition was woven tightly with her need for perfect public perception. Her career wasn't just about spreadsheets and market share. It was a carefully constructed cathedral of image. Everything had to be just so. Her clothes, her demeanor, the anecdotes she shared, and crucially, the way she was perceived as a wife. She needed to look happily married, but never messily in love. There was a fine, almost invisible line she drew, and I, her husband, often found myself standing precisely on the wrong side of it. That night, the ballroom was a sea of well-pressed suits and subtle power moves. I watched her finish her thank you speech, a masterclass in humility mixed with undeniable authority. My heart, despite the growing acreage of emotional desert between us, swelled with genuine pride. I grabbed 2 glasses of the celebratory bubbly and navigated the crowd, eager to share a single private moment amidst the fanfare. I finally reached her just as she exchanged a brief, firm handshake with Mr. Thorne, the CEO. Nia turned, her professional smile still firmly locked in place. I held out a glass. "Here," I said softly, my voice intended only for her. "A toast to the brilliant new regional director." She took the glass, her fingers brushing mine. It was a fleeting contact, but it was enough for me to feel that familiar, electric pull. Instinctively, I reached out my other hand, my fingers intending to curl around the small of her back, a silent, familiar gesture of connection and shared intimacy. It was barely a touch, yet her reaction was instantaneous. Nia shifted, not dramatically, but with a practiced, elegant sleight of hand that subtly blocked my reach. Her eyes, usually a warm hazel when relaxed, were sharp and assessing as they quickly scanned the faces around us. The CEO hadn't quite left the vicinity. A trio of junior partners were hovering nearby, clearly waiting their turn. She leaned in, her smile still wide for the onlookers, but her words were delivered in a sharp, low hiss that felt like a cut from a razor-thin piece of glass. "Benny, I really wish you wouldn't be so excessive in front of people." My hand, suspended awkwardly in the air, faltered. I retracted it slowly, tucking it into the pocket of my jacket. The warmth I'd felt a moment ago was instantly replaced by a sudden, chilling draft. "Excessive," I echoed, struggling to keep my own voice light. "I was just trying to show my wife I'm proud of her." She gave a small, controlled laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "I know, darling, but this is a professional setting." "It's not professional. I don't want to become that couple, the one everyone whispers about. Oh, look how attached they are." It detracts from the message. "Keep it low-key, please. I don't want drama." Drama. That word. It stung. My quiet, sincere desire for a moment of connection was labeled as cheap, attention-seeking drama. I felt a quiet surrender inside me, a silent, heavy stone sinking to the bottom of my stomach. This was Nia's cardinal rule. Our relationship must never eclipse her professional facade. She valued the polished reflection in the public mirror far more than the messy, real-time connection we were supposed to share behind closed doors. "Understood," I said, my tone flat, carefully neutral. I took a slow sip of my champagne, the bubbles tasting like dust and disappointment. She didn't notice the change. She was already beaming at a passing VP, effortlessly pivoting back to her role as the flawless executive. "It was lovely seeing you, David. We must catch up properly soon." I stood beside her for another 10 minutes, a spectator in my own marriage. I offered no more touches, no lingering glances, no soft words. I stood as she had requested, a non-factor, a respectable accessory. My heart wasn't breaking in a grand cinematic way. It was simply hollowing out, leaving behind a space that felt strangely serene, but profoundly empty. The emotional withdrawal began right then and there. I realized with a stark clarity that my efforts to bridge the widening chasm of her ambition were unwelcome in the arena she cared most about. Why bother offering warmth that would only be rejected and judged as excessive? I decided to grant her wish, not out of resentment, but out of a deep-seated weariness. She wants space? I thought, watching her perfectly executed smile. I'll give her the whole galaxy. That night, driving home in the deafening silence of a luxury sedan, a chilling thought took root in my mind. The Benny who seeks his wife's attention is officially retired. From now on, the emotional distance she so meticulously maintained in public would become my quiet, constant mode of operation. This silent withdrawal would be my only form of self-preservation, a shield against the pain of repeated rejection. Little did I know, this very shield would become the catalyst for the entire landscape of our marriage to shift, setting the stage for the dramatic, unavoidable collision of her pride and my newfound indifference in the chapters yet to come. The quiet of the car was never just a lack of sound. In our marriage, it was a heavy, suffocating blanket woven from unsaid things. Nia, perched in the passenger seat, was already on her phone, tapping out a flurry of congratulatory replies and work-related memos. The digital glow illuminated the precise architecture of her cheekbones, but cast shadows over her eyes, a perfect metaphor for how she prioritized her life. The event was a huge success, right? Nia finally spoke, her voice still buzzing with the adrenaline of the evening. She didn't look up from her screen. "Impeccable as always," I replied, the politeness in my tone a new and unsettling layer of distance. It was the tone one might use for a professional acquaintance, not the woman you vowed to share your soul with. She missed the chill entirely. Of course. David Thorne actually mentioned that the entire presentation felt seamless. That's high praise, Benny. It is, I agreed. Seamless. A word that defined her life. Perfectly smooth, no awkward bumps of human emotion. I wished, just for a moment, that she had a seam, a loose thread I could grasp to pull her back to me. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. The physical act of driving was the only thing grounding me. I needed to dissect that moment back at the gala, not to rage, but to understand the coordinates of my new emotional prison. "Nia," I began, careful, slow. "Can we talk about something for a second?" She sighed, a small impatient sound that made my skin crawl. "Benny, not now. I'm just finalizing tomorrow's schedule. We have an early flight to Tokyo. It will take 30 seconds. It's about the excessive comment." She finally lowered the phone, though her fingers remained poised above the screen, ready to resume typing at a moment's notice. Her face was mildly annoyed, like a flawless marble statue momentarily disrupted by a fly. "It wasn't a comment, Benny. It was an observation. We've been over this. Your body language was too demonstrative. It draws focus. This is my professional circle, not a honeymoon." "A honeymoon?" I repeated flatly. "Do you remember our honeymoon, Nia? We spent half of it trying to get the perfect photo for the office Instagram feed, just so your competitors knew you were unplugging, but still looking aspirational." A flicker of genuine irritation crossed her face, a crack in the porcelain. "That was necessary for my branding, Benny, you know that. You said you understood the sacrifices we have to make for the future we want." "I understand the sacrifices," I corrected, my voice dropping slightly, becoming more firm. "I just keep noticing that I'm the only one doing the sacrificing. I sacrifice the affection I want to show you. I sacrifice the simple intimacy of a touch because it might jeopardize your perfectly curated image. I have become the keeper of the unspoken rule. Don't make Nia look human." She bristled, the accusation landing exactly where it hurt, her ego. That is a cruel thing to say, Benny. I am doing this for us. For the life, the security, the things we can provide. The things we can show, I finished for her. That's always the key, isn't it? What the public sees. You are so concerned with the external architecture of our marriage that you've let the internal structure crumble. You've built this fortress of professional perfection, and you've locked me out of the inner courtyard. I'm just patrolling the perimeter, making sure the grass is always cut. She turned fully to me then, her gaze intense, but still, frustratingly, devoid of the emotional vulnerability I craved. I need you to support me, not criticize my methods. You need to trust that I know what is best for my career right now. I don't need your attention at a work event to know you love me. I need your understanding. She reached for my hand, finally, a gesture I might have wept for an hour ago. But now, it felt transactional, a quick reassurance thrown to placate a dissenting shareholder. I hesitated for a beat, then gently pulled my hand away, resting it back on the gear stick. The small rejection, deliberate and calm, felt monumental. You're right, Nia, I said, looking straight ahead at the pulsing red light of the stop sign. You don't need my attention. And moving forward, I'm going to make sure you don't get it, at least not in the way you seem to dislike. She paused, confused by my quiet compliance. Her expression was less hurt, and more puzzled, like a scientist whose experiment yielded an unexpected, yet potentially useful, result. What does that mean, Benny? She asked, a sliver of genuine curiosity now replacing the annoyance. It means exactly what you asked for, I clarified. Complete professional distance. Complete respect for your boundaries. No more excessive gestures. You want a relationship based on understanding and professionalism, and that is precisely what I will give you. No drama, no public affection, no private insistence. I am pulling back. I am detaching. I am giving you the space you so clearly value above connection. The light turned green. I pressed the accelerator. Nia remained silent for the rest of the drive, her phone forgotten in her lap. For the first time in a long time, she was truly thinking about me, about my words, but I knew the focus wasn't on my pain. It was on her loss of control over me. The silence was no longer a suffocating blanket. It was an invisible wall I had just finished constructing, brick by silent brick. I was still physically beside her, yet emotionally, I had already boarded a different train, heading for a destination she hadn't charted. This quiet, sudden shift, my immediate and complete cessation of effort, would be the very thing that broke her perfect public composure in the coming chapters, leading us both toward an unpredictable, yet essential confrontation. The Tokyo trip, promised as a professional necessity, became the immediate testing ground for the new, unspoken terms of our marriage. I kept my promise. No excessive gestures. I moved with the precise, distant courtesy of a dedicated personal assistant rather than a husband. I carried the bags, I confirmed the reservations, I stood slightly behind her in every lobby, a shadow sculpted by her own demand for space. Nia, initially, seemed to bask in it. She was unburdened by my presence, free to focus solely on the intricate dance of international deal-making. She operated with ruthless efficiency, her face a mask of smooth, impenetrable professionalism. But I noticed the subtle shift in her expectation. She was used to my quiet presence, but she was used to it being warm. Now, it was icy. In the elevator after a marathon meeting, she glanced at me. You've been extremely efficient this week, Benny. Thank you. It's no problem, Nia, I replied, my voice calm and even. I didn't smile. A genuine smile, in her lexicon, might be misconstrued as seeking attention. She frowned slightly. Is everything all right? You seem detached. I met her eyes, the very image of serene compliance. I'm giving you exactly what you asked for, Nia. Respect for your boundaries. Complete professional distance. No drama. Isn't this what you wanted? The question was a quiet hammer blow. She recoiled slightly, a minuscule withdrawal that suggested I had violated some unwritten rule of this new arrangement. You can be distant, Benny, but don't call attention to the distance. Of course, she said quickly, straightening her jacket. I appreciate your understanding. But the seed of unease was planted. She was used to rejecting my attention. She wasn't used to the feeling of it being voluntarily withdrawn. The power dynamic had subtly reversed, and for a woman whose entire world was predicated on control, this shift was a silent alarm. The catalyst arrived a week later at a corporate retreat held just outside the city. It was one of those aggressively casual events designed to foster synergy, but which mostly just required everyone to trade their three-piece suits for designer casual wear. This is where the tension, which had been simmering beneath the surface of our polite formality, finally boiled over. This is also where I met Dian. Dian was new to Nia's division, a rising star with an infectious, unpolished energy. She was the antithesis of the typical corporate climber. She laughed loudly, she wasn't afraid of a stray crumb on her shirt, and her interactions were devoid of any calculated strategy. She was authentically, messily human. I was standing alone by the buffet table, observing the forced merriment, when Dian bounced over, holding a plate stacked precariously high with pastries. "Oh my God, Benny, thank goodness you're here. Do these mini quiches count as a vegetable?" she asked, grinning. I couldn't help but smile genuinely, a warm, unguarded expression that felt alien after weeks of polite neutrality. "Only if you eat them while standing next to a houseplant, Dian. But legally, no." She laughed, a full-bodied, uninhibited sound that momentarily cut through the room's air of forced sobriety. We fell into an easy, rambling conversation about hobbies. My quiet love for abstract painting, her obsession with finding the perfect 1980s vinyl records. It was stimulating, engaging, and utterly casual. It was a connection built on shared interests, completely free from the suffocating pressure of image. "Seriously, you have to show me your sketchbook sometime," Dian insisted, her enthusiasm bright and honest. "I've been trying to get back into watercolors, but I always end up with something that looks like a tragic mudslide." "I'd be happy to," I replied, feeling a lightness I hadn't realized I'd missed. I was talking, laughing, and being seen for who I was, not for my proximity to Nia. Our interaction reached its peak when, talking about a particularly ridiculous plot twist in a new film, I threw my head back and laughed. Dian, in a spontaneous gesture of shared delight, reached out and clapped my shoulder enthusiastically, a quick, firm gesture of platonic camaraderie. "You're the best, Benny," she declared, her eyes twinkling. A good laugh was exactly what this evening needed. It was just a touch, a warm, genuine clap on the shoulder. It was the kind of human contact that Nia had so clinically rejected as excessive and unprofessional. And it was that very moment, that very simple human interaction, that shattered Nia's perfectly constructed mirror. My eyes, still bright from the laughter, drifted across the room, past the mingling executives, and landed directly on her. Nia was standing by the large glass window, engaged in what looked like a serious, high-value conversation with two senior managers. The professional smile was plastered on, but it was failing. Her eyes, those quick, assessing hazel eyes, were locked onto me and Dian. The transition in her expression was immediate and terrifyingly fast. The light in her face went out. Her jaw clenched into a hard, unforgiving line, pulling the perfect smile into a grim, strained mask. She wasn't looking at Dian with the heat of romantic jealousy. She was looking at her with the cold, absolute fury of a CEO watching a rival steal her top asset. Her gaze on me was colder still. It was the stare of an architect whose masterpiece was being casually defaced. This wasn't about love. This was about ownership and the loss of her attention's gravitational pull. She had commanded me to be distant, but she hadn't given me permission to find warmth elsewhere. The moment lasted perhaps 3 seconds, but it was an eternity. She then flawlessly resumed her conversation, a practiced movement of the mouth and eyes, but the internal earthquake had already happened. The tension in the car ride back to the hotel was thick enough to choke on. The silence of the past week felt gentle compared to the malevolent vacuum that now filled the vehicle. Nia didn't wait until we were inside. The second the driver pulled away, she spun around in her seat, her voice dangerously quiet. "You were embarrassing yourself tonight, Benny," she accused, her voice tight with suppressed rage. "That behavior with Dian was completely inappropriate. You made yourself look like a complete buffoon, flirting and laughing like that in front of clients." I met her gaze, the same calm, distant demeanor I had cultivated all week settling over me like a second skin. The pain of the last rejection had cauterized my impulse to defend or argue. Now, I merely observed her fury. Inappropriate, I asked, my voice devoid of emotion. Which part? The part where a colleague shared a moment of genuine laughter over a silly story? Or the part where she expressed appreciation with a tap on the shoulder? Don't play games, Benny. You know exactly what I mean. You were overtly familiar. People noticed. Mr. Hayes asked me who that overly excitable fellow was. Do you have any idea how that reflects on me? The accusation of making her look bad was the fuel on her fire. Her hands were gripping her clutch bag so tightly her knuckles were white. It reflects that my wife's husband is capable of spontaneous human connection, I suppose, I mused, deliberately casual. Something I am constantly told is unacceptable when performed with my own wife. Her breath hitched. My words, simple and direct, had pierced the armor of her professional indignation. Don't be ridiculous. That's completely different. She's a colleague. You know the boundaries. The boundaries, I repeated, nodding slowly. Yes, I do. The boundaries, Nia, are that you set the conditions for my affection, and those conditions are always never in public, and rarely in private. You told me 3 weeks ago at your promotion party that a touch of my hand was excessive and unprofessional. You commanded me to be distant and non-demonstrative. I simply obeyed your order. I leaned closer, my gaze locking onto hers, the full force of my contained calm hitting her like a physical shockwave. Why are you angry, Nia? The question was soft, yet it felt like thunder. I was laughing and sharing a friendly moment with someone, nothing more. You made it explicitly clear that my affection was a distraction and a liability. Why, when I finally stopped giving you the attention you constantly rejected, do you suddenly demand control over where I direct it? You didn't want my warmth. You simply didn't want anyone else to have it. The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth to argue, but no coherent words came out. The truth of my statement, that her anger was born purely from ego and the shock of being successfully ignored, had momentarily silenced her perfectly articulate mind. She had won the battle for professional image by pushing me away, but in doing so, she had created a void, and now she was enraged to see that void being filled by someone else's casual, honest human light. I didn't wait for her reply. I turned my head back to the road ahead, leaving her suspended in that painful, paralyzing moment of self-recognition. The silence that followed was not the quiet of polite detachment, but the ringing silence after a brutal, undeniable truth has been spoken. I had successfully detached. And now, the true fallout of her ambition was finally, irrevocably, about to begin. The confrontation in the car after the retreat had been the verbal equivalent of an exploding dam. My words. You didn't want my warmth. You simply didn't want anyone else to have it, had released a torrent of uncomfortable truth into Nia's meticulously ordered life. She had nothing to say then, and for the next few days, the silence she had previously cherished as an indicator of my professionalism now felt like a hostile vacuum. The immediate reaction was precisely what I expected, a desperate attempt to regain control. Nia started trying to bridge the gap, but her efforts were stiff, unnatural, and painfully transparent. The motivation was not love, but the sudden, terrifying realization that the one thing she thought was absolutely hers, my constant, adoring attention, was gone, and worse, she was the one who had thrown it away. She began by seeking physical proximity. While watching a movie one evening, she moved from her designated work armchair to the sofa. She leaned against me, her head resting tentatively on my shoulder. "Rough day, Benny," she murmured into my shirt. I kept my arm loose around her, neither pulling her closer nor pushing her away. My internal response was one of cool, clinical observation. Is this a genuine gesture, or a tactical maneuver? Sorry to hear that, I replied calmly. Anything I can do. She sighed, a dramatic, performative sound. Just this, I suppose. It's nice to just be here. I felt the weight of her presence, but none of the warmth of connection. The touch felt like an external pressure, not an internal resonance. It was her fear of losing control reaching out, not her heart reaching for solace. She was trying to re-establish the relationship's old gravitational pull, but I was now an orbiting satellite, moving freely in the silence she had created. Later that week, she tried to re-engage me publicly. At a small dinner with her business associates, I watched as she deliberately reached under the table and found my hand. She squeezed it gently. It was the public affection I had craved for months. "Benny's been so invaluable with the design aspect of the new campaign," she said, her voice bright, directing the entire table's attention toward me. The old Benny would have flushed with grateful pleasure. The new Benny, the detached one, simply offered a polite nod. "Just doing my part, Nia," I said, meeting her eyes. My expression was perfectly neutral. It conveyed nothing of the deep, intimate connection she was trying to publicly simulate. Under the table, her grip tightened, less a squeeze of affection and more a clutch of panic. She wanted the audience to believe we were in sync, but my emotional distance was a static that interfered with her signal. I had learned the hard lesson that my authentic self was a threat to her image, so I offered her the safest version, a polite, helpful stranger. This was the core of her despair. She was getting the distance she demanded, but it was coming from my heart, not just my feet. The pivotal shift came not with a grand gesture, but with a quiet admission. The initial burst of fear-driven attention began to wane, replaced by genuine, though painful, introspection. She started seeing the pattern. She saw how she treated every element of her life, including me, as a resource to manage, not a relationship to nurture. One evening, after she canceled a dinner with a high-profile client because of a sudden crippling headache, she found me in my studio, sketching. It was late, the house was dark, and the only sound was the gentle scratch of graphite on paper. She stood in the doorway, quiet for a long time. She didn't turn on the light, she simply watched the dim glow of my desk lamp. "You haven't mentioned Dien again," she finally said, her voice flat, tired. I didn't stop sketching. There was nothing to mention, Nia. It was a pleasant conversation with a kind person. It was just human interaction. "You were happy," she whispered. "You looked genuinely free." The battle with Mr. Wallace over Nia's new leadership initiative was a proxy war between the old guard and the new philosophy. Wallace, representing the sterile, emotionless past, fought her at every turn. But Nia had gained something far more valuable than his approval: the loyalty of her people. Dien and the younger teams mobilized. They created internal case studies, showing how the allowance for authentic self-expression reduced burnout and increased creative output. The data was undeniable. Nia, no longer managing her image, was managing real, tangible change. The climax arrived 6 months later at the annual Board of Directors meeting. Nia was scheduled to present the results of her initiative, and Mr. Wallace was determined to shut it down, using her unprofessional, personal life as the final leverage. I wasn't supposed to be there, but Nia insisted I join her for the reception beforehand. "You are my anchor, Benny," she told me. And I refused to hide my anchor. As we mingled, I noticed Mr. Wallace approaching, his face set in a familiar, disapproving scowl. Nia squeezed my hand, a silent signal of shared resolve. "Nia," Wallace greeted, his tone clipped. "I trust your presentation is focused solely on metrics and not on feelings." "Good evening, Mr. Wallace," Nia replied, her voice composed and confident. "My presentation is focused on results. Results that show a 15% reduction in high-potential employee turnover, a 22% increase in cross-departmental collaboration, and a demonstrable increase in market agility. And all of this," she paused, looking him directly in the eye, "was achieved by fostering a culture where our people are encouraged to be fully present human beings." He dismissed my presence with a curt nod. "And your husband? Still involved in design?" "Benny is the head designer for his own firm, Mr. Wallace," Nia corrected him gently, her hand resting firmly on my arm, not just an accessory, but a shield. "And yes, he is still very much involved. His perspective on culture and creative freedom is actually a major inspiration for this entire initiative. His principles are now our prophets." The subtle yet powerful defense of me, not as a supportive prop, but as an intellectual partner, was a beautiful moment of reversal. Wallace could only snort, a sound of defeated frustration. "See that you remain focused on the bottom line, Nia." He walked away, a ghost of the past defeated by the undeniable presence of the future. Nia's presentation was a triumph. She didn't just present numbers, she told stories. Stories of employees who performed better because they were allowed to leave early for a child's school play, or because they felt safe enough to admit they needed a mental health day. She didn't look like an iron curtain. She looked like a powerful, compassionate force. The board, recognizing the clear advantage in talent retention and morale, approved her initiative unanimously. Driving home that night, the car was no longer filled with tension or silence, but with the quiet joy of shared victory. "We did it, Benny," Nia whispered, resting her head on my shoulder. "We really did it. I didn't have to choose." "You chose, Nia," I corrected gently, pulling her closer at a red light. "You chose authenticity over the illusion of control. And that's what made the difference." I realized then that the whole saga had come full circle. The man who had been told he was too much was now an essential part of her professional narrative. "I have something I want to give you," Nia said, sitting up. She pulled a small, worn, leather-bound book from her bag. It wasn't the dusty journal, but a brand new one. She opened it. The first page was blank, save for a short dedication written in her elegant, powerful script. "To my anchor, Benny. May our life always be a beautiful, messy collaboration. Your Nia." And underneath, she had written a single, profound rule for our shared future. I felt a warmth spread through my chest that was richer than any professional pride. It was the quiet, enduring love of two people who had nearly lost each other to a destructive illusion, only to fight their way back to a deeper, stronger reality. "This is the best title I've ever seen you earn," I told her, kissing her hand. "It's the only one that truly matters," she agreed, her eyes shining with unshed tears and genuine happiness. "You were right, Benny. I don't need your attention anymore." She leaned her head back against mine, and we drove on into the quiet night. No words needed, the legacy of our presence settled between us, solid and enduring. The pursuit of perfection had ended, and the beautiful, imperfect reality of us had finally begun.